right. Okay, so apparently it's got to be some changes to the band. Like the comportment of the band and the band moving forward. Yo, I didn't even know I'd been arrested, man. I thought I got that identity theft stuff cleared up. When it was just one guy. Now I'm in a class action. So I got to deal with the fact I got to make some adjustments because now what I thought was supposed to be a way to try to heal from trauma and to engage in a certain kind of social critique using media and particularly entertainment in the form of something that ended up helping me out when I was young, going through the first Gulf War. Apparently, I guess it's supposed to be some kind of restitution. Am I, dealing with inappropriate taxation policy? I think it might be. So, I may or may not have to change the name of the band, even though I'm pretty set with Blood Slut. I think that's okay. And I may or may not be able to use Dick Meat as my first my first single on the LP when I get it together. Uh, I'm not sure what the standards are now, but it does remind me of a classic, and I think this is what I got put in jail for, man. Yeah, see, I used to be in another band back in the day. At the time, it was just like a duet. It was like a duo, me and another guy. And I wrote the first part, that's kind of the way I was. But when it got to the instrumental interlude at the end, and we were doing a kind of like ethnic fusion thing going on, he ended up writing that part, and he did it in another language. And I never got to see it. But I remember my part. So I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to recapitulate. And this is something that it happens in fucking heavy metal just as much as other music, maybe even more. I'm not going to go Norwegian on you, guy. All right? I'm not going to go Norwegian. I'm not going to go try to find your girlfriend and try to use her to start some sort of like death metal war. No. That's too far. Okay? They already got enough problems with pension systems, and I'm dealing with that on the other bandwidth, right? No. But at the same time, it's been more than enough time, and I already let you know you were supposed to disclose, right? Because all the stuff that ended up happening with what was actually a joint work product, it got really misrepresented over the last couple of years. So we're going to have to do this. I'm going to start and own up to my own part. It was a great song, man. And it was actually inspired by this French guy. This French guy back in the day. And, there was some controversy about the guy because he was a college professor in France and he was reputed to have inappropriate relationships with his students, actually. But nonetheless, people in the academic world, they really took this guy seriously, especially here in the United States. They ended up pretty much disappearing the entire political canon and academic canon connected to Marxism and the history of social struggle connected to Marxism to let it be supplanted by the kind of paradigm this guy presented. This concept of the disciplines. This concept of the internalization of defeat. This understanding of identify a space, mark it off with visual representations about your confinement and the limits of your capacities. Put various kinds of numbers and numerological references on the space first and then attach it to the person. Replacing that person's named identity with a metric correlation that can, by all appearances, anonymize that person as an actual human being, but allow them to be compartmentalized and componentized within a form of machinery. And then with the sort of stratification of the space, and then the stratification and the reinforcement of the alienation from one's identity. By the way, we're not talking about alienation from one's own work products or labor potential. We're talking about alienation from identity. That's a totally different kind of alienation. It's one that deprives you of understanding of a class basis for defining a collective self-interest in organizing. This is the real genius of this academic paradigm shift, right? And so in the course of that, you've defined the space, you've redefined the person based on metrics, you've allowed them to be systematized, you cut off their points of ingress and egress, require them to go through some kind of verification where they acknowledge an external authority. You let them know that whatever's on the other side of that checkpoint can be denied to them based upon the conditioning that is demonstrated in that moment of intersection with the authority at the portal or the gateway. And then that compels them to internalize the discipline of the social structure, while they're also supposed to focus on a specific specialization that can then remove their capacity to find interconnections with other sectors, and allow for a more macro analysis of the world. While they're stratified and streamlined and specifically assigned a particular specialty within which to focus, they can allow themselves to be appropriated from within, and as long as they remain focused on the program, then they demonstrate their compliance with the engineering of the regime. And they don't derivate from that program. And rather than seeking an external authority to catch them, they recomport their own behavior with an understanding of what is socially acceptable. They perform the role, and as they perform the role, they then internalize the discipline mechanism. They self-police. They don't even speak what they think, they speak what they know is expected of them. And if you do this enough, and you actually recomport the actual collective unconscious, you can get people that just don't think. And you can allow them to be coded into databases that compile predetermined sequences of acceptable information that can be downloaded into their unconscious so they perform. And that's why it's important for you to take care of the way you look. That's why it's important for you to acknowledge demographic experience and diversity, and then make sure that you represent what you've been assigned as a demographic indicator appropriately. It's called marketing. You got to learn how to market your product, man. And once you learn how to market your product, then you can get it to the store. And once you got that, then you've got an economy. Now, that's the best I remember it. Did I add a little bit? It's been a couple of years. I don't remember the specifics. Actually, I do remember the specifics. I remember it. Line for line. Even though they zap my brain, I remember. I remember the paragraphs. I remember the sections. I even remember some of the very specific phrases I use. And I remember where my contribution was terminated. It was translated. And it was allowed to become somebody else's legacy. So how I'm going to put this into a death metal song, I don't know. But I'm going to start with what I know. Right? The first heavy metal album I ever heard was Master of Puppets by Metallica. I got it the same time as I got Surf Nicaragua by Sacred Reich. Those are my notes. Master of Puppets, Surf Nicaragua. Bam. It might be a little south for you, huh? A little south? Don't worry, we'll get there, buddy.